Today, what I wanted to talk about, and we'll get rolling, is going to be for Town Hall 42. Is a couple things. One, welcome to 2021.
Yeah.
Uh, Hope everyone had a great New Year. We'll kick it off with, I don't know, maybe a bunch of people busting into the Capitol. Thought that would be fun. Um, but I think I showed Melissa a great meme. Let me see if I have it on my thing here. It was um, it was a meme. Oh, Melissa, you could put it up. Put up that meme real fast. That one that we, or the tweet from what's his name. That was hilarious. This is kind of how I feel about 2021. It's kind of pertinent to what we're going to talk about today. But I'll let her pop that up. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how people are thinking about 2021 and the planning for 2021. I know has been postponed several times for folks because there's been so much volatility in what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know watching a couple of your broadcast, Michael, I'm hearing the same thing. So I thought it'd be good to discuss it a little bit and get some feedback and talk about what, doing some research with some of our other groups. Oh, here's that meme. This thing's hilarious. Um, yeah, just double click on the picture. Oh, there you go. So it says 20, January 1st. We did it, guys. Alpha years behind us, August 4th. The snake wolves have taken Illinois. Here's what that means for the Ohio volcano refugees, which would be hilarious if it didn't, like, it could be true for all I know. So, I mean, that is just where we are these days. We just don't know. So, but we'll bump back to the presentation here. I think I just wanted to do some polling and talk about a few things. I don't think, we didn't have a guest. I think Glenn will show up, but it's going to be more of a discussion point.
Sure.
Um, so with that in mind, let's move on here. We'll thank our sponsors. We've still got our folks with CUNA, obviously Biggs, you broadcast, and I'm actually going to be, changing this up a little bit. Mike, I'll be talking to you. I've got some, me, I like new technical stuff. I've got some new things that we might talk about. So, been talking about with Glenn. Been doing a lot of work over the Christmas break on ideas for production that could be very different. So we'll talk about it. But to kind of get going here, there's CUNA still working with us. CUNA is a great example of how do you plan for 2021, and it's really difficult, I think, for everyone. So we'll kind of get into that. Let's move on to Mike and I, as I think we already passed that. I think everyone kind of knows what the who's here and who's not, but we want to kind of get into this discussion. So here's kind of what I was looking at for the 2021 major areas of focus, right? I was trying to think through what are the areas, if I was in the driver's seat of the credit union right now, what are the areas that I consider to be the most difficult to work with given the environment we have for 2020? What's got the most volatility? If I was looking at it from an overall perspective. And I'll kind of go through these and talk about it a little bit. The first one is profit growth. I think the biggest challenge there, Mike, is I don't know that we know where that's going to come from this year. And, we've got a couple polling questions that we want to ask during this to see what people are thinking. But generally by now you would have a master plan for, kind of, okay, we're going to do this many loans, or we're going to invest in this QSO, or, this is where our non-interest income is going to come from. This is where the interest income, it's so volatile. I don't think we know. And with that in mind, that kind of leads to when you're planning for your profit growth and you're trying to decide, okay, where will this money come from? Then everything else kind of follows up to that, right? It rolls up to that. Like everything else you do sort of speaks to that. And we're not for profit, so I don't want to put too much emphasis on that, but we do need
you can't run a business without profit. So
right, you need to profit for your members. So if you want to be a successful co-op, you need to profit on behalf of your members. And so with that in mind, then the next talk about that is what does productivity look like in 2021 as relates to that profit and growth? And that was something that I put a lot of thought into as to how do you plan for that? Like, how do you, when we make our plans for a year, we got all these ideas of, oh, we're gonna have this offsite meeting and blah, we're gonna invite this person, we're gonna rally the troops at this point, we're gonna do this at that point. I don't know that anybody can really put a good fine point on what that looks like. So that was one piece of it.
Right.
And we're going to dive into this a little more as we do the polls. But the next one was sales and marketing. So a good example. So Mike, you and I, we would generally see each other, I'd say 6-7 times a year. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, in person. Enough that, I mean, enough to where, it's just common. And a lot of sales and marketing would happen at these conferences, right? And to that same extent, if you're a credit union, you're planning car shows or, events where you're signing up, you're down at the March of Dimes walk for, those sorts of things.
Community events. Yeah.
So those are kind of a twist in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next place is, where do you put your money? So for example, credit unions have traditionally not been big television advertisers, right? But if people are going to be stuck at home until April or March, do you go ahead and do you switch up your advertising and make it less about being in the community and more about being on the community websites or being on the community television shows? What do you do?
Advertise on Netflix. That's what you do.
Yeah, if only, right? You'd have to. There's no ads on there. What do you do?
There's not. But if they did,
I guess you make a documentary. This is, help San Diego Credit Union make 200 million this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. And so that was another area that I felt was markedly changed and I'm just trying to put myself, as I said, in the shoes of the folks trying to do this. And we'll come around to the polling questions here in a minute. The next one was operations and communications. So, as we cruise along, communications was always one of those things where we had this, because of the physical environment, and this kind of relates to work at home. So we'll take for both of these situations here. But the communications as it relates to your staff and trying to, holy moly, that's crazy. Trying to get people to go through and create a methodology, a chained methodology of providing what I would call the vision and strategy of the organization. Usually that flows through a org chart or with sort of common touch points that are usually related to physical places, right? So you go to work and, hey, there's a morning meeting and we just want to talk about how we're doing on our goals, right? So we're gonna have to do all that digitally now. And are we equipped to do that? Are we equipped to deal with a work from home staff a little longer than we thought?
Yeah.
And then from an operational, and this go back to profit and growth. I haven't even touched on the economic issues that we're looking at, but and then the operational issue is, I think we've been kind of getting along. We may think that we've succeeded at this, but I guarantee you, and I know this because I've talked to a lot of folks, they're going, I can't wait to get back in the office. I'm limping along here. We're keeping this going. We drive in now and then to change the tape, so we'd be better off if we were there. And so I think there's a lot of people that haven't made that mental operation switch to a work from home environment because we've held out this idea that we may be going back the other way. And so, but the thing is, it's not getting any easier as it goes along to continue those operations. Yeah. And that leads to resources, right? So what kind of hiring were you going to do? Will you still do that? That's related to the economy. And what does that all look like? And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, here we are in a brand new year. Traditionally right now, credit would be cranking out. You'd be hearing about all these new cool projects with startups and all kinds of things. And Mike, you'd be on 100 different things with people kicking off or talking about, or even waiting until after Christmas to launch, right? Like, oh, we're launching finally. Everyone's going to get the brand new, artificial reality, credit union. They're all going to log in here. But that's not been what we've seen. There were a lot of projects that were on hold in 2020. Are those going to come forward? So those are the discussion points. And what I wanted to do to give us some food for thought was we've got a couple polls that we wanted to see if people would just participate in. And it's more just a straw poll. It's anonymous, but just to see if we can sort of figure out, and I know she set them up. So let's just go through those. And if the folks can answer, they're here, it'll give us some idea of some of these talking points. So let's do that. poll wise here. Melissa, are you gonna be able to pull those up? Yep, here we go. So let's just take this poll here. I'm going to not take it because I don't want to skew the results. But let's have the Crayons take it. And I'll just go over the questions here while we're waiting. They're there. So the first one is, are you expecting growth? Are you expecting to shrink? Or are you expecting status quo? From a balance sheet perspective, Mike, what would you think the outcome would be on that one?
I think status quo and growth would be neck and neck.
Okay.
Nobody wants to shrink.
Nobody wants to shrink, but what do you do, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's take it to the next one. What do you expect for 2021 projects? Are we going to be aggressive, full speed ahead? We got all these projects on the plan. We plan them. We're going to do them. Or are we conservative now, saving room for what I call curveballs, which is when the snake wolves take Illinois? What are you going to do with the Ohio volcano refugees, right? By the way, this poll is completely anonymous. We won't have any idea who answered. I don't want to know. I just wanted to get opinions.
Except for my responses.
Except for your responses, right? Everyone will know yours. So what do you think on number 2 there, Mike?
My gut says conservative because I think a lot of folks were aggressive in 2020 in pivoting and getting their digital offerings up. So I think 2021 might be there'll still be stuff in the plans, but I think it generally be conservative. That's just my gut. I could be completely wrong again, but that's just my gut.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would see the same thing. I don't know how you wouldn't be in this situation, but there are a lot of people that really do think that we're going to jam through this. And by the way, is it the right thing to do? I don't know. Is it time to make hay while everyone's at home? While the planes landed? I think maybe, but it all depends on a lot of other stuff. So, and these are fairly polarized questions. There's a lot of gray that could be added, but I just wanted to get some idea. The next one is, are you expecting or planning for curveballs in 2021? So I want to know what people are thinking about the economy. And again, this has been, you don't know the answer to it. Like we thought, and if you'd asked me in October when planning was happening, my first response, because we had no idea about a vaccine, I would have said, yeah, 2021 is more of the same. But then in November, you find out, hey, Pfizer's got one, and we're going to start seeing it roll out. And then you start to hear, well, we should have 20 million people vaccinated by January 1st, right? And you're thinking, okay, well, if we roll on at that rate, half of the U.S. adult population is, somewhere in 180 million, and that was less than a month and a half. Theoretically, by mid-year, and thinking it'll probably just get faster, we could be even further down that road, right? Yeah. But then we hear, oh, we're not keeping up with it. Okay, so let's throw that into the decision-making mix. And then, oh yeah, by the way, we've mutated strains.
There's more strains
of this that we think it'll stop it, but we're not 100% sure. We just don't know. So, what does that look like? And I don't know. I just don't know. So that was kind of what the curveball was. And the big curveball with that is we're seeing these high predictions for deaths. I can't see us letting that go and just sort of keeping going. Particularly with the hospitals being overwhelmed, where Kevin is, they now have hey, ambulance guy, if you don't think your dude's going to make it, just skip the trip to the hospital and go directly to the morgue. I don't like that plan. That's not, what I want to hear. So that to me is sort of a bellwether for what's to come. But I don't know what people are doing. I don't know how you plan in this world. So that's why I'm just throwing this out there. And then I think this next one is interesting. Are you adding resources? And if so, what kind? Like, what do you do? I think there's some things that are obvious, but are you repurposing your tellers? Will you ever open that branch to that level again? Are you investing in more digital resources? Are you investing? I don't know. And so I'm just interested to see what people's thoughts are on that. And then, I know there were a lot of 2020 projects, and talking to my friends in IT, that were abandoned. And when I go talk to them, and these aren't sexy projects, Mike. These aren't the kind of project that like everybody goes woohoo and it's done. It's things. It's what I call care and feeding that has to happen. So, for example, this year we were going to replace our backup system for the main databases with this other one. But the old one's still working, and with everything going on, we didn't get to it. And it's times like these where that care and feeding, when it gets pushed off for a little while and then a little bit longer, those chickens come home to roost eventually.
Yeah.
And you start to see it show up in operations, particularly when, but it could, you know, could be that you're changing your thinking, going, well, I thought we were going to have a backup system that wasn't entirely cloud-based, but given where we are and our resources and work from home, maybe we need to change that thinking. I just don't know, but that's an example. I don't think big projects, when I'm talking about the 2020 projects that were abandoned, it's not the big ones. You know, it's not that home banking move you were in the middle of. It's the smaller ones, but they add up. They add up to possibly a disruption or other issues. And so I'm interested to see, what do you do with those? If you couldn't get to them last year, can you get to them this year? Right. So I assume the poll's getting close to done and we can get some results. Melissa, are you able to get the results out of this? Nope, it's just a poll and we see what happens. I know she can get results, so.
I'll find them. I'm sorry, I was distracted.
All right, pop up the results when you can. We'll go over them. So back to this thought process that I was having. I thought it would be interesting discussion to see what the answers look like to these questions, because I'm just there they are. All right, so let's go through them. Okay, so interesting. For 2021, most people are expecting growth.
Good.
Now, what's interesting about that? There is this thought, if you go back and you look at the 1918 pandemic, you ever hear of the roaring 20s? Right. So the roaring 20s were brought on theoretically by the oppression, if you will, of the 1918 pandemic. It also led to our first
depression,
right? Because we sort of outspended, we overspended our economy in some ways.
The pendulum swung too far the other way.
Right. Led to the Dust Bowl and a lot of other stuff, but interesting. Okay. All right. So what do we expect for 2021 projects? People are being aggressive about it.
I like that.
I do too. But some are saving room for the curveballs. Okay.
Controlled aggression.
Right. But everybody 100% has built-in cushion for disruptions in the economy.
Yeah.
But I wonder what kind of cushion that is. You know, like what does that look like? Does anyone who answered that want to give me some idea? And I'll throw up what I think those ideas might be. Because since everyone answered 100, we no longer have
all in agreement.
We no longer have anonymity on this particular question. So can someone who maybe, if you don't mind, give me a little insight. So what would be one of the cushions? Is it that you don't expect to open a branch, or you back down some projects, or is it more that, I just don't know. So anybody want to take a crack at that?
If you want.
Hi, this is Jim Yates. My real problem was the second answer. Was yes was the better option than we expect the vaccine to solve everything and for business to be back to usual. I don't know.
Yeah, there's gray area. I agree. I purposely polarized that. So I may have put you in a position where there's an overemphasis on your concern and being cautious in terms of the answer.
Right.
Okay. But give me some thought. What would you do, Jim? So let's say 2 months from now, we're, Wyoming, Cheyenne is in strict lockdown, just something we haven't seen before, just, nailed down. The school systems are closed again, all of that. Now that you have the benefit of hindsight, what do you do different?
I don't know, do differently. I think we would probably be quicker to inform our members about what they can do without coming in. Just sort of make sure that business flow keeps going. Other than that, I think we would be more aggressive about people working from home. We had a partial staff. Even when we were closed, we had maybe a quarter of our staff that was working at any time. I think we'd be more aggressive about insisting that people work from home more than we were the last time.
So with that in mind, like for example, let's say that you had X amount of loans planned for this time, based on, your strategy and what you put together. Is there an adjustment for that in terms of, books and growth?
Sure, we don't have any specific plans for loan growth for this year.
Okay. And that's the question. I mean, that's a great point. Like that right there says a lot.
Right. We had good loan growth last year. Some of the best we've ever had, actually. But this year, whether that's going to continue, our members can only buy so many new cars.
Yeah.
And a lot of them bought cars last year. So we anticipate that will slow down. If for some reason people's income changes dramatically, a large portion of our membership did not have their income impacted so far. If that changes, that'll be a big change for our credit union. So that's what we're planning or anticipating.
Well, I appreciate you.
Will you be using like 2020 as a benchmark since it was such a nutty year and we had to make these adjustments? Will 2020 be a benchmark for 2021?
No. We saw a lot of more card loans than normal. I think people, they had more money to spend for one thing because they weren't doing other things.
Right, they weren't doing
anything.
We
also saw a tremendous amount of mortgage refinances. We only do 15-year mortgages, so we don't do a lot of purchase, but people refinanced a lot. So they refinanced their first to us because we were local, and they could go down to the 15-year, maturity with that. So I don't think we'll see as much of either type of those loans in 2021 as we saw in 2020.
Wow.
So
it sounds like 2020 was an anomaly in more ways than one.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. So Andrew, you on here? I thought I saw him earlier.
Yep.
All right. So what are you guys thinking? I know you're pretty heavy into this sort of planning, so.
Well, a lot of the curveballs we're expecting, with the rates not changing at all, it's just going to be the interest rate risk and the extension risk of, putting on new loans at that low rate kind of thing. So that's kind of basically the biggest curveball that we did was adjust our interest income down, in our projections from that. And then also that affects our investments that we do. But, with the, as you mentioned, I'm sorry, I forget your first name there, Mr. Yates. But, Jim. Yeah. As Jim mentioned there, with the refis and stuff with the home equities and everything, it's get to the point where everyone's going to be locked in at these super low rates and those payment speeds are going to be slower. You're not going to have these higher payment speeds. Things are going to be, something that might be a 15-year mortgage. It typically pays off in 7-8 years, probably will take 15 years to pay off now. Because why would they refinance that ever if we have historically low rates? So just trying to scrape and try to find places for income without getting non-interest income from our members, I think has been our top priority.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that spread is one of the issues, and it's also, there's other factors, right? What does the political environment do for interchange? Which theoretically, interchange should be very up, in my opinion, for most credit unions. I don't know if that's true or not, but Glenn and I have had this discussion a couple times. If you can't go out, you can't spend cash through your computer. You could try. I seen Mike try. I talked him out of it. We got all of the 20s out of his hard drive the other day, but that was just Wednesday, by the way. But it was a New Year's Eve thing. It was a little weird, but he just wanted to buy some
CD
champagne.
drive's all messed up, so
yeah. Well, that's because you thought that was a coffee holder. But theoretically that should be up for everyone. Andrew, is that something that you've seen?
You know, one thing about that, John, with the change in the member behavior and where they're shopping at, that changes that interchange formula. You know, big box stores, you know, that a lot of them are using either for online ordering or like, let's say Walmart for delivery on groceries. They have already negotiated a different interchange rate, you know, and they typically have a lot lower interchange rate than like a mom and pop store that's downtown that's now shuttered.
But you should be getting card on file interchange rates, not card present.
Yeah, yeah, on that one. But then card on file, even if they're changing their shopping, you know, I guess if they're able to still go to the grocery stores rather than shopping at the little mom and pop stores that are no longer open, if that makes sense. Because the grocery stores have kind of weathered the storm. The larger big box stores have weathered the storm a little better. At least, I mean, I don't have too much data on this. A lot of this is still anecdotal. I'm just trying to project what would happen.
Well, anecdotal don't go for it,
but
but you kind of have a feel for it. Interesting. I see Tom.
We've definitely seen Amazon through the roof, you know, with everybody shopping on Amazon. So that's
what I was thinking, you know, that's where, and Todd says debit card interchange is up, but credit card interchange is down. Interesting. I could see that as well, as an outcome. Tom, what are your thoughts there?
Oh, it's interesting. Happy New Year, John.
Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us.
You have a little different hairstyle.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, I've stopped cutting it. It's my new plan. And so now I invested in some sticky stuff that keeps it stuck to my head. That's my plan.
There you go. Well,
next time they give me some spray, some dark spray. I hear that works well.
Two things that I've seen related to what Andrew was just talking about, and I'll give you a cushion area. This year probably was the first year I did not contemplate going to a mall to shop for Christmas. Everything I purchased was online, typically through Amazon. And a lot of the reason for Amazon was the trust, because my wife has bought some things from these other companies that when you finally get the product after it gets off the boat from China, it is completely different than what they, you know, the picture and all. So you just can't rely on them. But we've also been more deliberate on the other extreme of shopping local when we can, restaurants and takeout and things like that. Deliberate, not just like, oh, should we do what's pizza tonight? Or no, it's like we're going to add another night or two during the week where we're going to
keep these guys in business. Exactly.
Right, to help them out. Because that's, you know, that's not a healthy thing if all those mom and pops go away.
I wish everyone thought that way. I hope it's something, honestly, I would love to see credit unions get on board with that as a message in general, and do something like the first one's on us or something, you know.
The double points on your credit card, you know, for shopping.
For DoorDash and downtown. For, you know, and only for local stuff. I don't know, but I completely agree. And I had the same experience. And you know, it's funny, just as an aside to yours there, the reason I love going to the mall to shop was I buy all my stuff and I always had these nice old ladies in the middle of there. If you drop off all your packages, they'll wrap them all. And then because I cannot wrap a package to save my freaking life. And so now I go, well, I'll order them on Amazon and I'll choose the gift wrap. Yeah, that just means they have a colorful bag they jammed it in. And it might be like socks, and you might get a bag the size of California with one set of socks in it. And so, and everybody knows you're a loser because you can tell all those bags came from Amazon. So the only fun thing I can do is just put weird stuff in the messages that they put on the little cards. But that aside, I think a lot of people had that experience. I would agree with you. So that means everything you bought was through your debit card. There was zero cash that was paid. Through your debit.
Absolutely right. And I bought, to be honest, the two big gifts I got for the house for my wife were the Peloton and a pizza oven, a gas-fired pizza oven. That's
you went all hard on it. I like it.
Neither one of them come until February, I think. So.
Oh well, you know, by then, either be vetted or not vetted, so it'll be open.
Right. But on the, as far as the cushion area, your third question there, the one thing that we're looking at real closely is loan losses. Having extra money set aside for loan losses. Now, all through this whole pandemic, credit and delinquency and loss ratios have gone down, which is really counterintuitive because people were out of work. So you would think they didn't have money to pay their bills, to pay their car
Right.
loans and their credit cards and all. But delinquency rates actually fell. And I think that's in part because of all these stimulus checks that they were throwing at people. And if today plays out as it seems to be in Georgia, where the Democrats take control of the Senate, they'll have the White House as well as the Congress, you could see more and more and more checks being sent to Americans to offset some of that. So, that we have to be cognizant of it and we have to build that cushion in. But we may get to kick that can further down the road. But eventually, it's going to come back to us, and there's going to be, because the high unemployment, we're going to see some delinquencies at some point.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew, can you mute? I think you're jamming on us a little bit, buddy. No, I totally agree. I think that I think the stimulus package will certainly help for both the businesses, because assuming that there's another round of PPP in that, and there is already, and that's a good question is, hey, those PPP loans are really also a good saver for the credit unions. I know you did a lot of them, and Andrew, don't worry about it, buddy. I just trying to wait it out. I know you never do that. So, but it's one of those things where I do think you're right to look at the cushioning as it relates to how you change where your income comes from, those profit centers. And that's where I was curious as to, what do you do? Like Kevin brought up this thing the other day, and I didn't think about it, but if we're going to lose, like, what's the number these days? It's like, it's going to be another 100, 200,000 people die in the next like 3 months or something. I mean, something ridiculous and that's their conservative estimate. What is that like? We're starting to see, I don't know, for me, I'm starting to see a lot more like 41-year-olds dropping dead, but then Sally, who's 150, somehow beat it and is ready to rock. It made her younger, and now she's stronger and going to last another 100 years. What does that mean for us from a jobs perspective? Is this, I hate to say it, but does this somehow even out? And I don't know. I mean, how long before you start to see that impact on your membership and others?
We're seeing a lot of people that are deferring the vaccination. Personal friends that are in healthcare saying, you know what, we're just going to wait. We're going to see what happens. It's amazing the numbers of people that are just hesitating and pausing with that.
Send that crap my way. I'll do it right now. Tell them I'll take all the doses they don't want.
We're seeing a lot of reports about that around the region, at least. And without getting to that level of at least a herd immunity, if not more protection, we're going to see our numbers go up, and more people are going to get sick, more people are going to die, and the lockdowns are going to continue, and it throws us back to where we were a year ago in like April, May, and there's no reason to be there when we've got some protections on the way. And then you roll on the vaccine, the virus that's now multiplying at 70% faster rate than it had been. And it just, you could see 2021 being, I was more of the status quo and conservative responses in your questions for 21, because it's difficult to plan when you can't see where the future's going.
Right, that's what I was trying to figure out. I'm with you there. That's where my head was, and I just wanted to get some idea of what others were doing, because as your business goes, mine goes to some extent, right? And I have to sort of figure that out as well. So one thing you mentioned a minute ago that I want to touch upon. So provided we don't have a complete insurrection by the end of this meeting, and which now I'm watching people climb into the Capitol. They're literally climbing through they broke out the windows and they're climbing in.
Oh my gosh.
Watching now on the screen. But coming back around to this, there's a yin and the yang, to your point, of the incoming administration. The yin being, I do think that they will provide more stimulus checks, but I also think some things that have been, in our favor to some extent, like the CFPB, I don't want to call it being dismantled, but definitely its teeth being taken away from it, which I don't know is good or bad, but I know in some cases it's been helpful. Do you see, as they begin to resurrect those sorts of things, any concerns there from a regulatory environment?
Yeah, and a lot of that's the uncertainty because it's going to swing. We're going to see more on the consumer protection side. Having been, I was on the Credit Advisory Council of the CFPB.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you were part of
Going
that.
back, I was one of the people that was fired by Trump, by Mick Mulvaney.
Oh, you got fired by Mulvaney when
Yeah,
they
I got
showed
fired
up?
by Trump.
But did you
The
get
whole
donuts?
committee was
Didn't he
just
bring
like-
donuts?
Yeah, the whole committee was put on the phone and he kicked us all out.
Oh, okay.
But I think you're going to go see the more zealots down there, where it's really all about the consumer and nothing but the consumer, with little cause about what it costs or the actual risk that they are avoiding.
Mhm.
They're not managing. They're not really good at managing risk. All they want to do is avoid the risk. And
Right.
we're in the business of managing it. So I think that's a dangerous area for us right now.
Yeah, because my concern would be that, again, like everything in life, pendulums tend to swing back pretty hard the other way. We were talking about the impetus of the Roaring '20s that's been predicted based on the 1918 pandemic, but that also led to the Depression. I mean, it was Prohibition era. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened in that space, but it definitely ultimately led to overspending, non-saving, a whole different group, and almost a repeat in that process. When I look at this and I think about the CFPB being put back together, the first thing I think is, hey, that isn't me. That's not going to be Tom. That's not going to be Aspire. They're after Wells Fargo giving everybody an ATM card. But while they are, unfortunately, they can't do it without being somewhat punitive or without knowing it. They can't apply rules just to those guys and not have it hurt you. And unfortunately, it can hurt you more than it can hurt Wells Fargo, who doesn't care. And that's another piece of it. And I was trying to sit down and think about 2021 and put all this into my mental funnel and come out the other side of, if I was sitting in your seat, what would I tell the board? What would I do? What would be my plans? And the only thing I could say is everybody's gonna stand on the bow of the ship. You ever see when you're down in San Diego, you ever see and you see it all the time, Mike, but when one of those aircraft carriers comes in, all the dudes get out on the edge of the ship and they all stand. I'm just thinking that's like your permanent approach now. You got to have every dude on the outside of the ship just watching the water, looking for mines and whatever else is going to come, while you try to slowly navigate this portion of the journey. Is what it feels like. And I don't know how I would communicate that to a board, because it doesn't present itself as a position of strength, nor does it present itself as a positive opportunity, other than to help members, which would be obviously how you've played it, and I think the right way. But even then, there's only so much help you can provide at some point. So it's a mess. It's a hot mess. And I was just trying to think through that, but you were the more conservative side of it. So tell me a little bit about your 2020 projects. Do you feel like any of those, I know you have a coordinated IT group and you guys budget with that. Has any of that, have you looked at that, and have they said, hey guys, we didn't do this, but we really got to do this now? What did that budget look like? And I know a little bit about your process. So
we're looking at, and it becomes a little cumbersome or a little complex, because we have at this stage 3 different credit unions with 3 different business models that are trying to come to some standards and approaches to get more efficient on the IT, and in this example, the IT front, bringing in new technologies, which we each would use to a more or lesser degree. We're not all equal. And, but we all have the same general thoughts that we need to look at more automation, more AI, start really focusing on some of the AI that applications and how that could work for us from lending. Because as we've talked about how a while back you had 10 years worth of IT advancement in the past couple of months, 10 months.
That's true. Absolutely true. Yeah.
The banks have done the same thing.
So it's not like they're static.
Yeah, and they're beating us on the American Consumer Council scores and all. They're getting better consumer scores, which is it's really tough, and it's been a trend. It's not just a point in time. It's been a couple of cycles. So we have to continue to raise our game, and artificial intelligence is an area that can help us to onboard members more smoothly and easily, and improve loans quicker and ideally more accurately, with more risk factored in and quantified instead of just qualified. Do
Wow,
better
that,
job
what
for
a,
people.
that is actually a really cool statement. That is, yeah, you're right. We qualify risk, but we don't quantify it.
Right.
We tend to quantify it, but only after the fact, right? That's
Right.
what, that's what our CECL stuff was.
Right, that's what I was going to say. As Cecil comes on board, it's before the fact,
Yeah,
It's
whether you like it or
changing
not.
the game on us.
Right. So
So
that's fascinating too, because when I look at it and I think it through from the perspective of you who's trying to look at like, how will I get this to be a smoother process? I do think you got to look for the biggest bang for the buck in terms of a game changer, and AI certainly is that. One of the things Glenn and I were working on, I don't know if Glenn made it, he was supposed to be here, but I'm not sure he could make it this today. He's going to start being at all of them. But Glenn and I were talking about one of the things we predicted last year was we tried to take a crack at a prediction of how much of the lending decisioning for 2020 would be AI driven. And what we didn't think about was how we would ever figure out who had the answer. So we have Melissa out sort of hunting for that number in a qualified way to find, maybe American banking or somebody has a good answer that we can at least hang our hat on. But my thought was that number should be approaching 50%. And the reason for that is the bigger organizations are using it. They're making most of the loans. The trickle down is the next 50%, which is, I think, is you guys. And whoever's in the top tier of that, I think is going to have a much better chance at sort of maintaining that market, that digital market that you've been cultivating for so long. So yeah, that's a fascination to me. And investing in AI, the challenge with investing in AI is that it just means that we really got to get good at data analytics. And I still have not seen like the crazy things you've seen out of people like Morgan Stanley, the guys that are just really just data analytics alone, much less machine learning or anything like that, has been ridiculous. And so yeah, I wonder when we're going to turn that corner, because that's what you have to have in place to be AI, to really get good AI going. And there'll be a lot of people that want to sell that, to go, nah, we'll figure it out. But even Brian Lay, who him and I have had some great conversations, that was kind of his plan. He ran into that buzzsaw, and he'll tell you that. He'll say, look, I wanted to do this so badly, and arrogantly I thought, hey, they can't get their data together, but I'll help them do it. I'll get it through it. But it is not that easy, because the data is so intimately wound into all of the credit unions, and there are very few people that know where all those bones are buried or those bodies are buried. And digging them out and getting them to write it down, and even know that they know that those bodies are buried there. Like, even there are people who are internal to the organization that know stuff, that don't realize the organizational capital in terms of intelligence that they're sitting on. And that's really going to be, and just continuing to pontificate here, this is a good opportunity to dig that out. Like, we do have some time. I feel like we're in a little bit of status quo for the next few months. This will be a good opportunity to put an initiative together to say, we're going to do something called, I'll just make up one for you, Tom. We'll call it Sherlock O'Shea. That's the name of it. And what Sherlock O'Shea is about is it's a program inside the credit union where they get the hat and the pipe that Tom wears when no one's looking to look like Sherlock Holmes, because they didn't just accept an answer about something that happened. They dug in and found the data and found the why. And encouraging people to do that, I think that would be a way to culture shift, right? Because our culture at the credit unions is so much about reaction as opposed to being proactive and asking, we just sort of accept, hey, this ATM got triple the amount of transactions. Woohoo! But no one goes, why? Right? But when you figure out the why, maybe you can replicate the triple amount of transactions across everything. Or maybe you can figure out that that was a problem. Or maybe you figure out that, hey, this is a trend for just this, and it's only going to happen. It turns out there was a party there or something. I don't know. But those are the,
we had the 20s in the bin where they were supposed to be 10s.
Yeah, exactly. So that worked out really well. That was the best transaction ever. But this idea of having a sleuth-based organization where that sort of inquiry and being intuitive and inquisitive in the organization is not only encouraged, but it's rewarded. That to me would, because inevitably someone's on the trail to figure out why something happened, it's going to run into that person who's sitting on that organizational capital and doesn't understand it. And when they open that time capsule, when they push back that rock or open up that manhole cover and find all that, they're going to tell everyone else. And so I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box, but data, I've always said data is a key to our survival. And I like your approach on the AI.
Yeah, and the problem we run into is that it takes resources. I mean, somebody has to sit and build it to get to the point where it can actually operate. And like you said, you've got to know where all the bones, skeletons are buried to figure out we've got, well, our mortgage data is there, and our student loan data is there, and our commercial is there, and our consumer is here. And you've got to sit down and spend a huge amount of time in putting that all together and making all those connections. Plus then with third-party outside data sources like credit bureau reporting and so on. And the big shops, let's call it the $1 billion north credit unions, have a more capacity to do that type of thing than smaller ones. And if we as smaller ones do it all, which is the majority of the credit unions, if we do it all on our own, it's going to take forever, and we'll never get to that 50% of loan volume being decisioned by the end of the year.
By something that's something that would quantify versus just qualify. Just a quick question though, and this is just me being thinking in my head, but if we turn that around, instead of trying to have this giant draconian project where we try to, it's kind of like, hey, I'm trying to clean this room and it's a huge mess and it's just too many bites for me to take off and nobody can really, it's a huge amount of effort. But hey, maybe if I just cleaned up this corner, it's a start, and that leads to where I can get in that closet now, and that's the start. So what I was hoping was, because I had thought about what you said, that's actually the problem I'm trying to fix. And I was hoping that sleuth program, the Sherlock O'Shea program, as it will forever be known now, would get somebody to go do that work on their own. But it wouldn't be everything, but it would force them down that rabbit hole just enough that, oh, there was a result here and it was positive for both me and for the credit union. Even if it's not positive, even if they just did the work and came back and went, here's why there was a rabbit over there, this cute rabbit, everybody, this guy dresses a rabbit nearby, made a lot of transactions, whatever, as long as you know. But the idea that you could go through and get people to be that intuitive, if enough people took that little path, it's almost like it would be like somebody walking. You ever seen one of the video games where you're top down looking and the guy's got a torch and you can only see kind of like from here to here? Yeah, it would be like 2 or 3 of those people kind of walking down with those torches. They would illuminate enough that you would have a good foothold on the start, I think. Because I believe the most powerful and incredible asset the credit union has always had is the culture amongst the employees. And when you give them reason to do something, you give them the ability, in this, particularly when you reward them for it, they've always been like this. They've always been sleuths. I just don't know that because of the scariness and the way we've kind of couched things with security and everything else, that we've given them a good way to go and track these things down and understand it.
Yeah, I mean, we've made them afraid to open an email.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin used to call those kinds of people, what'd you call them, Kevin? Diggers? Is Sarber on? I think he's on. He's right now rapidly. He just got a puppy. We both did. We have family puppies here, but if he can get back on. But Kevin used to hire people he called diggers. He liked diggers because diggers don't give up. They will never be happy with we don't know why. And I'm that way.
We have a person in our card area, and she has saved us in the 6 figures for card fraud losses that we used to suffer back in 2 years ago. Where our card fraud losses are down north of $100,000 a year for the past couple of years, because she's a digger. She does that. Mm-hmm. She just really looks into it, and we don't roll over when somebody puts a claim in. We look at it and say, that's not right, or it goes back to the merchant, or whatever it happens to be.
And I think that's And I just think we need that kind of that sensibility across the organization. We need that sensibility.
But some people are just so tied up and they're just getting through the day, and the call center people are just lucky they get the loan volume pushed through that we need. Let alone
so it's fascinating to me that so just in general on other cushions. So give me just and we're getting close to the end here, but just give me a quick snapshot. So here's what I'm picturing. You tell me if I'm even close, but normally in the normal year, here's how I think it would have gone. Somewhere around September, maybe August, someone would have started going budget, board meeting and budget. That's how they sound, by the way, Mike. You haven't been inside, but that's exactly how they sound. And they would have started screaming about it because Tom would have said, well, we're going to have that document to the board members at this time. And then there would have been the scramble for projects and digging up the stuff he already had. And then somewhere around November, it would have been finalized, delivered to the board, and off you go. And right now, as soon as the first hit, it would have unlocked all that money and there would have been work to do. I don't know that that's what's happening right now. So is it that process still happened, or what happened? I guess that was my question.
This past year, it hasn't. No, the strategic planning cycle and then the budgeting that follows.
Yeah.
To build all those plans. No, because even when in the past we would do that, you'd always talk about how the budget or the strategic plans are good for the week. It's this week, and because next week is different. We couldn't even make that.
Even just accepting that the strategic plan would be useful, we couldn't even get that far.
New York, they come out and say, "Oh, we're going to lock the city back down again," or no more. It's a winter. You can't do indoor dining in the winter. It just changes the economics of the whole area, and people are thrown out of work, and all of a sudden now your resources are going to a different direction because you can't make progress because your foundation is cracking.
So how does the board receive that? I mean, I think they understand, they know why you did it, but are they looking at you going, hey, okay, we get this, but we're going to expect you to be back here when this is over with a real plan there, Mr. Sherlock O'Shea. Well, we like your pipe and hat for right now, or is it that, hey, we're in this together? And I mean, I just don't know, it's hard with volunteers in particular, but what was the reception of that?
It was more, it's definitely, we're in this together, because they're seeing it on their families.
Well, yeah, and they're business leaders too, right?
And they realize that, we can't be foolish with let's just pump out credit cards or debt consolidation loans, because we're seeing these people are just losing their jobs.
Right.
And so you've got to say, all right, where do we spend our time and effort? And it's not, there's no assurance there. And right now things are just so up, and, the pendulum is swinging fast and to each extreme.
Yeah, well,
today,
the tear gas coming out of the windows of the Capitol kind of denotes that.
Crazy.
This is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. Someday we'll look back on this, but I really appreciate you sharing that perspective, because I was really wondering, and I'd be interested if anybody else wants to share it, but I was just really wondering, as I look at 2021, what that planning process looked like. And I realized that I felt like some of it had been postponed, and today was a reason I picked to come back for the town halls today is because it was the Georgia runoff. And I also think that played into it a little bit. I think that, to your point, I think most people would think, okay, there's going to be a deeper stimulus check depending on who gets control of the Senate, and that will make a difference in how we approach things and what we do. Particularly, like you said, some people, because they got the stimulus, we didn't see the loan drive down. Hats off to the government for that. Hats off for Warp Speed. I want to give everybody all the credit they deserve for the work that was done. But this, the forward motion of this is, what I'm learning from hearing you talk is, a plan is as good as, while the ink dries. And so what we're really in is in sort of this keep the lights on type operation, where what we want to do is every day do the best we can against our really blocking and tackling. We're going to make sure people get money out when they need it. We're going to make sure that people get money in when they need it. We're going to make sure that of the loans that we will give, that they're qualified and quantified to the extent that we can. And other than that, we don't plan on really trying to shake the boat up, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Last thought.
You listen to our members, the phone calls that we get, they're just so stressed right now. We're in New Jersey, most populated state, more people per square mile than any other, sandwiched between Philly and New York, which are both like going crazy into deeper lockdowns again. But people are just stressed out. So they're not out like, oh, I want to get a new credit card. Your credit card.
Yeah, they're not going to be real receptive to that. Hey, let me cross-sell you a credit card right now. Right. How you feel about your home? That's not going to be something that's like a it's going to seem insensitive to have that. And that's where I go back to marketing. And just real quick, what are you doing for marketing that you weren't doing before? Is it more of the same? Did you pull back? I mean, like, for example, you would have spent a ton of money on signage, you know, not you in particular, but well, yeah, you. I mean, I know you've had billboards around town and stuff. But if people aren't going anywhere, do you keep putting billboards up?
We're not going to see them.
It changes. You've got to look at all your marketing spend to see where it makes sense.
I mean, it seems like TV would be better, right?
A
lot of digital.
Give us a call. So try to get people to reach out before they get into trouble, so that we can help them maintain their credit score and, you know, preempt any issue and work with them through the rough patch. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm just so appreciative of people like that sharing and what Cragun's trying to do for everyone. It's obviously interesting times, trying times.
It feels like we're like Debbie Downer, but it's just the reality we're living in.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people who are taking a different approach, and I know, you know, you and I've been friends a long time. I know we have a similar mindset. I would, you know, but I have heard some people go, and it's geographical to some extent, right? I mean, your geography and your makeup is different than, say, a more rural credit union, who for right now isn't seeing the dramatic effects of this, but they are starting to, from what we can tell. We are starting to hear that from, for example, Zach isn't on today, I don't think, but Zach out in Michigan is a great, you know, to talk about what's kind of going on. He's close to that border. So, but I think that, you know, the planning portion of this for this year, I think that it's kind of like, this is the third quarter and it's going to make or break us for the game. It's kind of how I'm thinking about it. You don't win games in the first quarter or the second quarter. You win games in the third quarter. And then if you don't win the game in the third quarter, it's come from behind, or, you know, it's not a good plan. If you don't have things locked down by the third quarter, the fourth quarter ain't no fun, whether you're winning or not.
You want to coach the Giants, because they sort of need that advice.
Well, they could, yeah. Well, I used to tell my wrestling kids that the first period is won by, you know, the kid who has, you know, the most talent. The second period, if you get that far, is won by the kid that has worked harder. And then the third period is the one with talent who worked hard. And that's really what it comes down to. We all breezed through well, even breezed, but we did a good job in the first quarter. I think Cragun stepped up to the plate. I think they did incredible things. Second quarter, I think we held a good defense. I don't think we put up as much offense as we could have. I think it was another timing thing where we could have taken a bigger bite. I think your point, and I'd like, by the way, would you mind sending Mike and I I'd like to go over those consumer scores. I would like to talk about those in a future thing, if you don't mind sharing them. But I think that right there gives an example that we didn't gain the ground we should have in the second quarter. Here we are headed to the third quarter, and our main, in my mind, our main job is to be solid and stable for the membership and to deliver the products and services that they need when they need them. But that doesn't mean sort of accepting status quo. It also means being ready to pivot, being adaptable, and you'll hear that a lot, is the species that survives is the one that's most adaptable. It's not the strongest, it's not the smartest, it's always the most adaptable. I believe we are the most adaptable. I think we could change faster than anyone else. The question is can we make the right decisions on what to become, what to do, what to transform? So fascinating stuff. Really cool discussion. I really appreciate your time. You're going to see some big changes on this. I'm actually going to be contacting a few of you that I know are regulars. I got some plans, so we're going to do some updates. And Mike, I'll start with you. We'll go over it. I'll send you a few notes, but in the next few months, we're going to really up the game here and have some fun. I've decided if I'm going to do this every week, I'm going to start breaking out some of my technology chops and see what we can come up with. So exciting stuff. We're going to be talking to the president of a major AR company. I see that as a big one. One of the things I was just going to quickly talk about, I've gotten these. These are Amazon Alexa glasses. And just to kind of show you, I was really blown away by them. You can kind of see, I think I'll turn it on where you can see the dot come on. Hang on. You should see a red light here in a minute. Oh, there it is. You see it right there? these things have blown me away. There is a huge use case in the Kraken for these things because I can hear things and no one else can, and I don't have to have something in my ear. And by the way, every one of our people is looking at a terminal all day. Even if they don't wear glasses, it wouldn't hurt to have a UV blue shield. And it is like unbelievable. It's like I could easily have someone help. Doesn't project anything on the lenses yet. I'm going to get there, Terry. So that's the next question. But all it does right now is it feels like you have headphones in your ears that you do not. It has basically built-in Alexa, but what it could do very easily is give your employees a whisper connection, even the front teller, even anyone. And then these are the future. Shut up. Can you hear that? You guys can you hear that at all? It's really loud. So you can't hear it, but to me, it's crystal. It's right here. So we're going to talk a bit about that and some other new stuff, and we'll continue to try to find whatever we can as far as synergy to help people with the pandemic. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming back. Happy 2021. Let's all go watch the TV and see if we have a government. Talk to you soon.
Be well. Be safe, guys.